Welcome, everyone, to the Comedy Sports Podcast, starring your host, Christine Rollo Capriolo, and now the man who's a myth in his own mind, Dick Tuna Chudnow.
Welcome to our first podcast. Dick, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for asking.
You're welcome. Who else would we have for our first podcast?
No one.
No one, just you.
Just me.
So, Dick, tell me, where were you born and raised?
Born in Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. Went to Keefe Avenue School.
Grade school?
Yeah, grade school.
Okay.
Well, kindergarten.
Got it.
And then moved to Shorewood. I thought it was amazing. There was all these trees because I lived on Atkinson Avenue where there were no trees. And went to Atwater and then went to Shorewood High School.
Okay.
And then went to University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee for a semester. And then I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
What did you study at Milwaukee?
Communications.
You're so good at it.
Communications.
Yeah?
Yeah, communications,
And
yes.
you graduated from Madison?
Yes.
With a degree in communications?
Yes.
That's fascinating.
A BS.
BS in communications.
Right.
So what did you want to be when you were a kid? What did you want to do when you grew
I
up?
wanted to be Jerry Lewis.
Jerry Lewis.
He was hysterical.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you wanted to entertain?
I didn't think about entertaining anybody except my family. Mm-hmm. I didn't think of getting up in front of people and doing it. But he was hysterical, and I did imitations of him for the family.
Okay.
And it was fun to make people laugh.
Were you the class clown?
Yeah. But in grade school, I was pretty serious.
Seriously?
Yeah, I was a pretty serious kid in grade school. And I remember the first time I made people laugh in Mr. Weaver's class. Sarge, but don't call him Sarge. He'll knock your heads together.
Okay.
And he did that. He said something and I said something and the class laughed. It was a real nice laugh. It wasn't like, I got Mr. Weaver, Sarge. It felt really good.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. Yeah, that's what I want to do.
How old were you?
5th grade.
5th grade. So that started it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Then why communications at UW?
What else was I going to do?
I don't know.
I couldn't add.
No?
I couldn't, I didn't know math. There was nothing else I really wanted to do. My family had a scrap iron business. I didn't want to do that. So just got a general communications. Then my dad said, you need something to fall back on. So I fell back and took a education degree.
Oh.
Yeah. And
then did you teach?
Yeah. Yeah, they send you out. The first school I went to was J.I. Case.
Where's that?
Racine.
Okay. Like student teaching or you taught there?
Student teaching.
And then you taught in L.A., I remember.
Yeah, I did.
You have the best story. I'm a teacher too.
I know that.
Yes. I'm an art teacher.
Now everybody does.
Everybody knows.
Yeah.
You have the best story of when you were being evaluated.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I was teaching at Racine, J Case. So I knew she was coming in to evaluate. So I told my students, there's about 30 students in the class, that I'm going to ask you questions about the lesson. If you know the answer, raise your right hand.
Yeah.
If you don't know the answer, raise your left hand. And she came in and I started the lesson and would ask questions, and every single kid's hand just shot up for every single question. And, they always knew the answers because I knew the kids who were going to know the answers.
Sure.
And I got an evaluation. It was the most incredible thing she's ever seen. She said, I've never seen anything like it. And I got an A.
Way to go.
Yeah.
I think of that story every time I get evaluated. And I've been teaching, I think, 21 years now. Every time I think of that story.
I really like teaching. In L.A., I became a substitute teacher, though, because I didn't like permanent. I was teaching at junior high, and I thought, it's hard. Teaching is really hard.
Well, in middle school grades, it's super hard.
So I became a substitute teacher.
Yeah.
And became a really good substitute teacher because I would, when the kids came into the classroom, I'd meet them at the door and I'd get their names. And when you know their names, they go, I can't screw on. I can't screw around. So I would get their names, and if it was a huge class and there was no lesson plan, I would write on the board that I was Richard Chudnow, Mr. Chudnow from the school board. So I was from the school board.
Yeah.
And that they were having a citywide spelling test. And the kids would be in there going, so what, no one told me we're having a spelling test. I'm not going to take a spelling test. And they'd sit, the bad kids would sit in the back, fold their arms.
Right.
And I'd say, take out a sheet of paper. And they'd go, they take out a sheet of paper. And so everybody took out a piece of paper. I said, number from 1 to 100. That took 10 minutes.
Right.
So, because that's what you're looking to do.
Waste time.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
As a sub?
Yeah, as a sub.
Yeah.
And I'd say, okay, I'm going to say the word once. I'm going to use it in a sentence, and then I'll say it one more time. There's no going back, because if you don't say that, then at the end of the test, I go, what was number 2?
Right.
So there's no going back. I say, everybody ready? The first word is I saw a dog. The second word is big. I saw a big dog. Then it just, every word was like, and then it was D is dog, the easiest words you can imagine.
You didn't get them more difficult.
Think of it. No. The easiest words I could possibly think. Zoo. Zoo is the word. But after it started and these kids in the back heard the words, they would, give me paper.
Give me paper.
You got some paper? Give me a pencil. Okay.
I'm going to pass this test.
And kids, but the thing was, some kids got A's, the first A they've ever had in school.
Oh, so they remember you.
Yeah, they remember that, and I remember them. So, sometimes you should do a podcast on substitute teachers.
Oh my God,
there are some great stories.
Oh yeah, just teaching in general.
Yeah,
I could fill multiple podcasts with bonkers stories.
But you don't hear many of them.
No,
you don't hear that.
No, I mean around my fellow teacher friends, but
right.
Yeah,
but you don't hear podcasts
of
about that.
No. That would be very entertaining. Maybe we should scrap this.
Well, when you do podcasts, I think a lot of people expect the podcast to be about entertainment and entertaining things. Okay, what do you want to do now?
Well, how about, other than teaching, did you have other jobs? Or you went from teaching right to L.A.?
No, in high school I had a job. I was at 31 Flavors.
What's your favorite flavor?
It's strawberry.
Really?
And I remember I worked there a week, and it was Saturday night, and we were closing up, and the boss said, I'll see you tomorrow. I said, tomorrow's Sunday. He said, yeah. I said, the Packers play tomorrow. He said, yeah. He said, I can't work on Packer Sunday. He said, okay, you're fired. So
that was it?
That lasted a week.
Good job.
And then I worked at a computer, I forget the name of the company, but they hired me to do their computer setup.
Yeah.
And I couldn't add or subtract. But my uncle, who is my family was in real estate, he got me the job because it was an air conditioning company, and my family built homes, and they used their air conditioners, so he had to hire me.
Okay.
And never figured it out. This was when the computer was the size of a room.
Right.
And he tried to program it. I never could. So and that was, that was pretty much it. I didn't work a lot.
Well, what made you move out to L.A.? Did you get a teaching job out there?
Yeah. They used to give you a list of schools all over the country.
Okay.
And my choices were somewhere warm.
Right.
So either Florida or L.A. And I found a school that was close to L.A. but outside of L.A. And went there and interviewed and got the job. Okay. I started teaching at Eva D. Edwards Junior High School.
Now, is this after Kentucky Fried Theater at UW-Madison? No. I moved out to LA in 1967. Okay.
And that's where I learned improv. That's where I started my love for improv.
You took a class out there?
Some guy, one of my friends said, "Hey, you're funny. You should take an improv class." I didn't know what improv was. I thought it was jazz.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
No, there weren't many improv clubs at that time. So I took a class and was horrible at it because I was used to doing Jerry Lewis shtick,
Okay.
that kind of stuff, and it was funny. And I was funny, but the instructor kept, Sid Grossfeld was his name.
Okay.
He was a great teacher. He would yell shtick.
So he'd call you on it.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, I'd be up and I'd do something and shtick. And I'd go, damn it, it's funny stuff. That's funny. It's shtick. And I got really angry.
Really?
And, yeah, because he was being mean to me.
Oh.
And I remember sitting down. Okay, this is a good story. I remember sitting down in the audience and being really angry.
Yeah.
And he got up to show, we were doing scenes, and he got up to show how the scene, could work.
Right.
And I remember sitting there with my arms folded, going, you're not gonna. And he stops the scene, looks out at the audience, looks out at the class, said, someone's trying to screw me up. He didn't say screw, but
Yeah, well, sure.
Someone's trying to screw me up out there. And I sunk down in my chair because it was me. Now, fast forward, I don't know how many years later, 10 years later or something, after I started Kentucky ComedySportz.
Yeah.
And someone, I won't, mention names, so someone was doing a scene.
Yeah.
And I had to yell stop because it just wasn't working. And
Right.
I said stop, and I went up and was going to do this, continue the scene, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't get into the scene. And I stopped and looked out in the audience, and I saw the person that I took off the
Right.
stage sitting there with her arms folded, just staring at me, staring
Just
daggers.
pissed.
And it was karma. It was karma.
Came back
It
to
was the
bite you
most
in the butt.
And I learned about communication, that everything you do on stage is communicated with the audience.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. So how did you come back then from LA? Well, wait, before we get to ComedySportz, I want to hear more about Kentucky Fried Theater at UW-Madison.
I got tired of LA.
Okay.
The weather never changed, and I missed my family, so I tried to get a job at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Okay.
Knew the governor from one of classes I took. I can't remember his name. Wore a red vest. And wrote him a letter, and they hired me to teach a class in TV production.
Okay. How did you get that? Your experience being a substitute
I was in that
teacher?
program. I was in that program.
Okay.
That's what I was in, so
Yeah.
he knew me from that.
Okay.
And I have a terrific personality.
You do, Dick Chudnow, you do.
And they hired me, and I started to teach that. Well, then one day I was driving in Milwaukee, and someone pulls up next to me, and it's Jimmy Abrams.
Okay.
And I see Jimmy, and I roll down the window, and he said, hey, the Zuckers are thinking of doing this TV show, and based on another show that was out called Groove Tube.
Okay.
By Ken Shapiro, and they wanted to do this Groove Tube show. Do you want to come and meet with them? Now, I had seen them in the school, so I remember them from that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like I didn't know them at all. And we got together and we started to talk about what they wanted to do. And they wanted to do Groove Tube, which was basically a TV show.
Okay.
And it went around the country in bars and stuff, and you sat on pillows and you watched the funniest stuff I've ever seen. It was hysterical.
Yeah.
It really was good. Chevy Chase was in it.
Was it improv?
No.
No.
All set.
Okay.
All set stuff. But
Okay.
if you haven't heard of it or seen it, it'd be worth looking up.
Groove Tube.
Groove Tube. Yeah. And I had improv experience at that time because I picked it up in LA.
Sure.
And I said, well, that's a good idea, but someone's done it already.
Yeah.
Why don't we add live stuff to it? Why don't we do, TV and live and throw in an improv, bit or game, and then Jerry Zucker, who was, a film maven, said, yeah, we could do film too. So we did the three things. We did live, TV, and film in the show, and just wrote bits and made them short. Made sure there were like 30 seconds, a minute, 2
Right.
minutes. The courtroom scene was the longest one. That was in Kentucky Fried Theater movie.
Movie, yeah.
And that was the longest one. but it was just bam, 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 bam. And that's where, what's the guy name who started Saturday Night Live?
Lorne Michaels.
That's when he saw it when we brought it back to L.A.
Yeah.
That's a different story. The short bits instead of this long agonizing thing. But anyway, we started it in Madison and it was very successful.
Okay.
And Zuckers wanted to bring it to Milwaukee. And I said, you can bring it to Milwaukee, but I'm bringing it to L.A. And L.A., no, we're not ready to do big time like that. But I had lived in L.A.,
sure.
So I knew this would go over well there. And David Zucker agreed to go with me. And if we found a space,
okay,
and we found a space and what else? Something parking with the parking lot. He would, we would come back and we would move to L.A. We found a space because his uncle worked at a hospital that had a rehab center.
Okay.
That they were going to tear down. And he said, well, if you go in there and you fix it up and you make it, code worthy,
sure,
you can do it there. And it's this huge building with 2 rooms the size of theaters where we could have used, 2 theaters. And we just cleaned it out and fixed it up and passed the codes and started on Pico Boulevard next to 20th Century Fox. It couldn't have been a better location. It was, Pico Boulevard's a major thoroughfare into town. So we had this huge Kentucky
You're
Fried...
next to 20th Century.
Right next to 20th Century Fox. Got a parking lot. It stood alone. It was, street, what do you call it? It faced the street. Everybody saw it.
Okay, yeah.
Everybody saw it as they drove into town in Pico. And we started shows there 1971 or 2. I can't remember exactly when. But it was I remember sitting in like a Denny's, but it was called something else.
Sure.
And it was 3:00 in the morning, and we were waiting for the Los Angeles Times to come out. And the truck came by and threw it on the sidewalk, and we ran out there and picked up a Times, and there was this great review.
Of Kentucky Fried Theater.
Of Kentucky Fried Theater. It was this incredible, that you got to see this kind of review.
Yeah.
And from then on, we were like sold out.
That's incredible.
It was great. It was really fun.
Then the rumor you alluded to earlier is true, that Lorne Michaels had witnessed one of these shows and that started his idea for SNL?
Right. I don't know if that started his idea, but he was, if he was thinking of something with Ebersol, he got the idea that these short, wacky...
quick scenes.
Quick
boom,
scenes,
boom, boom, boom.
Would work well in a TV format.
In a TV format. Mm-hmm. And did you know he was there? Did you know him?
No.
This is long before that.
Right, before he was known.
Before he was known.
Yeah, before he was anybody.
How then do you get back to Milwaukee and begin ComedySportz?
I was seeing a therapist.
Okay.
And I was thinking about moving back, but I'd go into a session, I'd say, I don't know, I think I should move back, but then I'd feel like a failure, but, I could stick around and get, some more work doing scripts or whatever, and, I just was going back and forth. And she said, Dick, I said, yeah. She said, just make a decision and then make it the right decision. And for some reason, that just hit home. I said, yeah. That makes sense. And that was the decision.
That was it. I'm going home to Milwaukee.
Going home. So happy to get back.
Yes?
LA's pretty toxic.
That's what I've heard.
It's a toxic place.
That's what I've heard.
Everybody's friends. Everybody loves everybody. And if they can stab you in the back, they will to get a job. Everybody's writing a script.
Everybody's trying to be an actor.
I was like, you go to a gas station and you talk to the attendant. Yeah, I got a script in development at Metro.
Sure.
And you go, oh, so you threw something over the fence. You got a script and threw it over the fence, and now it's in development. So yeah, I had some good friends that I'm still friends with.
Okay.
But it was tough. It wasn't as much fun as I thought it was going to be.
So you don't look back and regret that break?
Oh,
You're glad you came
God,
home.
are you kidding?
So then tell me how ComedySportz came to be. You're co-creator of that. Who's the other co? And tell me about it.
Well, the people who were in the first group. I had an improv. I came back, moved back, worked at the Iron Yard, family business, which I hated. I knew I had to get out of there. So I started an improv class. I just put something in the paper, improv class, free, and started it at the JCC.
Okay.
And in that class was Judy Berkowitz. And I was in a play with her when I came back, after I came back. And this is a complicated story.
Give it to me.
Sure you want to hear it?
I'll take it.
Okay, all right. Chris Keene, who was one of the funniest guys I've ever met, was in Kentucky Fried. Well, yeah, in Kentucky Fried Theater with me.
Yes?
Yeah. And when we moved out to L.A., he didn't move with us.
Okay, he stayed here.
Because he was married.
Oh,
and his wife said,
those ladies.
It's either me or them.
Yeah.
So he didn't move out.
Okay.
His father died, and they're Milwaukee people. Mm-hmm. He was living in Seattle at the time. Came in for the wake. Mm-hmm. And the wake was held at Cult's restaurant.
That was your family's restaurant? No.
No, Cult's restaurant.
Cult's is where ComedySportz used to
I didn't even know Cult's existed at that time.
Okay.
But the wake was held there, and I went to the wake. Mm-hmm. And Chris stayed a couple more days, and he did a workshop with my group.
Okay.
But because he knew some other people in Milwaukee, he invited them to this workshop. John Bank being one. Yeah. Karen Kohlberg being another. I think John Bank knew Bob Orvis. So Bob Orvis came to this workshop. Rosie Friedman wasn't there. No, maybe she was. John Light was there. Nancy Garrett Nash was there at this workshop. And that turned out to be the beginning group. He taught us some games that I've never seen before, theater sports games. He was in theater sports in Seattle. Yeah. Taught one game, the game that he taught us that stood out was, What Are You Doing?
I was going to guess, What Are You Doing?
And that was not played by theater sports. That was just an exercise. That was not something. They were very concerned about scene work and improv.
Yeah.
That was their main concern. Good improv. And they were judged on how good their improv was.
Okay.
So Chris invited me out to Seattle to see a show.
Theater sports.
Okay. Now this is when after I had this group of people, Bob and Karen and John and everything, and we were practicing improv, just improv at the JCC. Went out to Seattle, saw a show. Mm-hmm. And then I went to Vancouver and saw a show there, Vancouver Theater Sports.
Okay.
Right? And it was a fun show. It was funny. Yeah. They were good improvisers, but the scenes would go on forever. And they did the standard theater where they would bring their arm down and then the blackout would come.
Okay.
And so that really bothered me. The first half of the show was a demonstration of improv. It wasn't a match.
Oh, okay.
And they had an MC in a tux who would say, this game is this or this game is that, and then they would play the game. And then the second half, they would come back and they'd do a competition where they had judges who would judge on the improv. And like I said, it was good improv. They weren't very respectful of the audience, and it was a very dirty show.
Okay.
And I'm not a prude. Maybe I am. Am I a prude?
I don't think so.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, a little bit. We'll ask your first.
But that kind of bothered me because it's easy humor, and
it's easy to go blue.
Yeah, and drugs.
Yeah.
That bothered me a little bit about the show. It just bothered me. Mm-hmm. So after the show was over, they voted on who the best improviser was. And there was this kid in the show. He's a little guy.
Yeah.
He's the funniest guy in the show, I thought, in the show. And he didn't win Best Improviser.
Okay.
And it just bummed everybody out. The
crowd?
You just felt the crowd go, oh.
Yeah.
And his teammates gathered around him and comforted him. And it was just the worst ending for a show I could possibly imagine.
Ended
You
on a
just
very
left
low
feeling
note.
like, oh, yeah, I hate this show.
This is dumb.
And that taught me that you don't do that.
Yeah.
It's a team. It's a teamwork, and you don't do that. So, on the way back on the airplane
From Seattle,
I was, so what can I do with this? And at the time, the Packers were playing that day, and the flight attendant was a stewardess, announced the score of the game, and everyone, cheered. And it just is one of those serendipitous moments where you go, oh, that's it. Sport. Make it a sport. Everybody loves sports.
You came up with that on a plane back from Seattle.
Yeah. And then the rest of the plane trip, I just made lists of all the sports terms, halftime, a referee instead of a MC, halftime instead of intermission, instead of a theater, it's an arena, and there's penalties. They had one penalty. They had waffling and brown. They had a brown bag foul.
They did. Okay.
Didn't use it very liberally.
Because you said they were more dirty.
Yeah, and they should have used it more, but they didn't. And they used it for the players, not the audience.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so I just thought that was it. That was that's what I thought would work in Milwaukee. And I came back to Milwaukee and I told the players what we were going to do. And they didn't know any better. They weren't very bright. And no, they just, they didn't get the concept yet. We had to just actually do it. Then we just started working on that concept of the two teams and halftime and referee and all that stuff. And I gave them the day. I said, okay, we're going to do our first show September. This was 1983. So we did the first show September 83. They said, oh, we can't. We're not going to be ready. We're not going to be ready. No. We did the first show at the 8th Note at UWM.
Okay.
Because I went in and said, hey, you got a room. Can we do a show here? And they said, sure. But then I was looking around for a permanent space, and I remembered the room at the Wake at Calt's.
At Calt's on
Went
Oakland.
back to Calt's, and Henry Calt was there. And I said, hey, do you think we could do a show in this back room? And he said, sure.
Were they using it? Or just
they
for
used
Wakes?
It for actually they had used it for melodramas way back in the 50s. And he said, yeah, sure. And that was it. And we said, we'll just we'll do a show. We'll take the ticket prices, and you can take the beer and wine and beverage and food. And it seemed like a good idea to him.
Okay.
And that's where we started.
And that's where you started. And you stayed for how many years?
I think we stayed for 8 or 9 years, and we had the small room, and he moved us up to the bigger room.
Okay.
And then charged us rent. But it was an incredible deal.
When you started shows, was it just once a month, once a week? Do you remember?
We started on a Friday, we started on a Saturday. First show was on a Saturday. It was just family and friends. Mm-hmm. And they had never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
And so they told people about it. And the next show, next weekend, Friday and Saturday. The next weekend was a Friday and Saturday show. And we just pulled people in from the street. No one knew, no advertising whatsoever. No one knew we were doing this show except the relatives who brought some people back. So we just started doing the shows, and people started coming and bringing other people back. We had a coupon in the program.
Okay.
And then one day NBC showed up. The local affiliate showed up with cameras.
Okay.
Someone had told them about the show. Didn't know they were coming.
Like the local news?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
They just showed up and started filming. I said, hey, you can't film here. No, I didn't say that. You
Don't
looked at me
sucker
like,
brother me.
You looked at me like, are you insane? So after that aired, we were pretty much sold out for quite a while.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, where'd you come up with Sparklers and Dendrites, the team names?
It was Karen Kohlberg, I think.
Yeah? This is what we are.
Well, Sparklers, East Side Sparklers and West Side Dendrites was the original name. I don't know how that came up. The first thing someone said
Was it?
was always it.
Yeah.
Always, yeah.
Now, how did you continue to get more people involved? Not the audience. How did you start to get more players involved?
We'd announce a workshop.
Oh, okay.
We say there's a workshop. We never did auditions. Oh no, the first we did one audition, and that's how we got Brian Green. Two guys showed up.
Yeah.
Brian Green and another guy.
The other guy didn't make it.
Neither one could do improv, but Brian Green was just fascinating to watch.
Sure.
He was just funny and charming. Had that stage presence. So he was the first one that came in after the original group.
How far was that? Like a year later?
No. Just months.
And then Brian was in.
Brian was in.
Yeah. And Rosie had already been there.
Rosie was there. John Light, Nancy, Bob, John. Did I say John Light?
Yeah. John
Marvin,
Light.
Marvin Berkowitz, and Judy Berkowitz.
Oh, that's great. Then how did it go from Milwaukee to other cities and now countries? I think Madison was next, right?
Yeah. What happened? Well, there was some guy was sitting in the theater, and he said, "Hey." He said, "Hey." He's good. Harold Serp was his name. He's a large fellow who was eating food and didn't take a break. He said, "Hey, this is interesting. You think you'd want to do this in Madison? I got a hotel." And
Sounds like a creeper.
And so I said, "Sure, yeah, we'd love to do that."
I'll go to your hotel with you, sir.
You seem like a pretty reputable guy. So he owned a hotel on Washington Boulevard.
Okay.
Midway, I think it was called. And we went in there, and Karen Kohlberg and I went for 8 weeks. We drove to Madison in the weekends to train people.
And how'd you find those people?
Well, that's an interesting story. I put notices up in the theater department.
UW-Madison.
I had known the theater instructor, and I asked him if I could do it. He said, sure. Mm-hmm. And it was, again, an improv workshop, not auditions.
Right.
And from that audition, I got Jeff Kramer, Mike Rock, Pat Reardon,
Joe Thompson,
Pat Short. Joe Thompson wasn't there at that.
Not yet.
Not that night.
Okay.
But we taught them these games, and they played them so much better than we did. It was amazing. Both Karen and I thought we need them to move to Milwaukee.
Right, and do the shows in Milwaukee.
But they started at the hotel with inviting friends and family, and it was pretty crowded. Well, after that show, you couldn't get in.
Really?
You could not get in in the space, and it was huge. It was a hotel banquet room.
Right.
And so they were sold out for the run of 8, but the guy wasn't selling food because he had a buffet, and this was his idea. This would sell a lot of buffets.
The big guy?
It's like a buffet from lunch that was just kept over. And it was like the broccoli was almost liquid in the little pan. It was a horrible.
So nobody was eating.
No one was
But they were
eating.
laughing.
They were laughing, but they don't drink when they're laughing.
Right.
And that was a problem with owners. We went to a bar, a great place to do a show, and we did a great show. It was hysterical.
Yeah.
And afterwards, we went up to the guy, and he said, that was the funniest thing I've ever seen. We thought, great, we get this space to do the show. He said, but I can't use you here because I watched people, and they weren't drinking.
Because they're laughing.
Yeah.
So he didn't watch you.
Yeah. No, so we couldn't do it there. We found spaces along the way,
Well, when I started playing professionally in Madison, because I did high school league in Milwaukee, 91 to 93.
Yeah.
And I played in Madison. At that point, it was...
Why'd you go to Madison?
For school?
Oh, you were in Madison?
I studied art education at UW-Madison. And I left Milwaukee high school leagues, and I knew you.
Yeah.
You must have told me, check out ComedySportz in Madison.
Yes.
And I remember taking workshops in Madison and then started playing. I had been in workshops for a while, and I remember Alex Shapiro would drive me to workshops. You know Alex, right, Shap?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and every time he'd drive me to workshops, he was the worst driver. He'd drive down the wrong way on a one-way street. I can't believe I'm alive to tell you this. And I was getting mad because they kept saying we would start playing professional shows, me and Matt Finale, and kept saying we'd play shows, and we kept being workshoppers and weren't playing us, and I was pissed. And I showed up, and I think I'd been complaining to Alex the whole ride there. And I want to say at this point it was Rocky Rococo's on the west side.
Yes.
Because when I was doing workshops, it was like the upstairs, downstairs, and
Sure.
Pizza Hut on State Street.
Right.
But we got there, and I was so mad. I'm like, they're never going to play me. They're just going to keep me in workshops. And this was like a year in. I mean, Jesus, I was barely there. And then I look at the lineups, and there's Christine, Rollo, Capriolo in the lineups. And I felt like such an idiot because they're all laughing at me because I was complaining so much. And this was my first show then, and I didn't even know I was going to play my first show. And it was a hoot.
Well, Christine, that's a fascinating story, but this is about me.
My point was that they had been in multiple venues in Madison.
Yes. Yeah.
Multiple places.
Yeah. And then what happened was, without you even asking, another guy came in.
Yeah.
And he was sitting at a table, and someone said, "This guy wants to talk to you."
Yeah.
And this guy was a chain smoker. I've never seen anybody smoke like that. At one point, I think he had 2 cigarettes in his mouth at a time. And he said, I would like to take this. My wife and I have a syndicated column in the newspaper, and we have some cash, and we'd like to start this all over the country.
ComedySportz.
Yeah. All
Okay.
over the country. So I said, yeah.
Sure.
I don't know you, but yeah.
You're so trusting.
That's great. And we sat down, we talked. His name was Maureen. His wife's name was Maureen. His name was Pat. And their idea was to do a company store.
Okay.
Company store means you hire the people, you hire the talent, you hire all these people. They send the money to you, and then you pay them. And it was a hugely complex thing because there's different tax laws in each different state. And the way they got the managers was to put an ad in the USA Today.
Okay.
So someone would call and say, "Hey, I saw this ad. And it really looks interesting. I'd like to start it. ComedySportz." And they'd say, "Okay, well, let's talk about it." And they'd talk about it. If they sounded sane, they'd go, "Okay." And some had to come in and interview, but it really didn't matter.
Right.
Yeah. So we started in Columbus.
That's really
running-
how you got ComedySportz in other cities?
Yes.
Just a random ad in the USA Today.
Yes. And I think it was Kansas City,
Okay.
Columbus, Ohio, not Dallas, because I sent, I sent or asked Diana Delaney if she would go down to Houston. She lived there and start one there. Jeff Kramer in San Jose.
Right.
Pat Walsh in Washington, D.C., and I think that was the main one. So they started theirs in those cities
Right.
from this original thing. Well, it was a mess because just send us some money. You didn't know how, based on your audience size. Mm-hmm. So who's going to go travel to these?
Count?
I would go. And they knew I was coming, so maybe they invited all their friends, and the audience is full. And so we never knew what was really happening. And then we changed it to a fee per show.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
You still didn't know how many shows they were doing. Yeah, so it just wasn't working for the Reardons.
Yeah.
And so I bought them out
Okay.
and changed things up. I think I changed it to a per show thing because it was too complicated getting money for the number of people that were
audience,
interested. So
yeah.
I changed it to a per show thing. and wrote a newsletter and wrote a manual, which I had started and written before, and that's what we would send to them. But I updated the manual for the new cities, and that worked fairly well. You know, people, managers are going, I don't know how to write. I can write words and stuff, and I know many words, as many as our president almost.
That's a lot.
And but I can't write. I can't put together a logical sentence, cohesive thought. So it was a manual that was, that if you don't show someone a game, if you're not there and you don't show them the game, reading it doesn't help you figure it out.
Right.
So they were flying blind pretty much, but they had some success. Then another guy approached me and wanted to franchise everything.
Yeah, who's this?
This was a guy. Came in and said, I said, "Are you serious?" Mm-hmm. And he said, "I'm as serious as a boil." And I had this gut feeling of, oh, geez, this is not. But I didn't follow my instinct.
No.
I didn't follow it. And he was rich.
Yeah.
And put all kinds of money into it and was ready to franchise everything, which, all the different laws, franchise laws, it's just a complicated thing. But I thought it'd be a great idea. Then everybody would have all this money to work with, but it was very threatening. Mm-hmm. People thought, well, I'm not doing that well. He's going to just get rid of me.
Yeah.
I won't be able to do this anymore. And because of that, 4 cities left the league.
Okay.
Kansas City, Santa Barbara, Green Bay, Austin, and Dallas. Is that 5?
That was 5.
5 cities left the league.
Yeah.
But it was more than that. Everybody was freaked out.
Okay.
And I'll never forget this one meeting at one of the championships, and I was going into a meeting, and Pat Walsh said, "No, we're having this meeting without you." And I was like,
"Without you?
Do you know who I am?"
I am Richard Chudnow.
You can't have a meeting without me. But they did, and they met, and then it was like the league was going to be disbanded. But James Bailey and Jeff Kramer and Pat Walsh and Dave Goday of Chicago sat down with me, and we worked out a deal where the managers would now have ownership. Mm-hmm. They'd own 50% of the league.
Okay.
I would no longer run the league, but I would get not a percentage. I would get a fee.
Yeah.
And that worked out.
That was fun.
So well.
That was good.
I didn't have to do anything.
What an easy thing to do.
I had to do nothing. And someone ran the league. Pat Short.
Yeah.
Pat Short ran the league and knew how to run things. And then that grew from there.
Okay.
That's when it started really to take off.
And do you think back to that now and think this is because I'm on a flight back from Seattle and I dreamed up this idea and now all these cities have it?
I don't know. Sometimes I think this is great.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the luckiest guy in the world that this worked out the way it did because there was so much serendipity.
Yeah.
So many things happened to make this happen.
Yeah.
That I almost feel like I didn't do it myself. These amazing things happened for me. Mm-hmm. People being at ComedySportz. ComedySportz at Cults and saying, "Hey, I'd like to do this," and all these things happen. And the knowing that yes and works.
Yeah.
That I just said yes to everything. Everything.
So you're talking about games before, though.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you this.
Yeah.
Games like Forward Reverse, Chain Murder Mystery, 6 Things, whatever the game is.
Yeah.
Where do these come from? Did you, Dick Chudnow, invent these?
Well, Forward Reverse was invented by a high school team.
Okay.
The other games were developed sometimes in workshops, sometimes by other cities. There, in every tournament or championship, there's a
new games
workshop.
Right.
And a lot of the games came from that.
Okay.
Everybody's trying to think of new games all the time, and most of the games are just spin-offs of other kinds of games. So 6 things is basically 5 things.
Right.
And those any guessing game is based on that mime game.
Mm-hmm. And how does Viola Spolin, is that her name, right? How does she fit in all this?
That's her name. Yes.
Didn't she write a book on all these games?
Yeah. Improv for the theater.
Yeah.
It's the Bible, basically. I'll tell you a story. When I was in L.A., after we had started Kentucky Fried Theater, I said to David Zucker, who was kind of the, more of an improv guy. He liked doing things, taking risks. And so let's call up Viola Spolin and see if we can meet with her. Never thinking that would work. We called her, found where she lived, found her number, called her, said, "Hey, we'd like to meet you." She said, "Okay."
I'll be right there.
Yeah, okay. She lived up in the Laurel Canyon, in this little cabin that looked like the witch's cabin in Hansel and Gretel. And we went in there, and she was so nice and had stuffed mushrooms for us. I was a little afraid to eat them.
Yeah, a little bit.
And we were talking about improv and her book and everything. And it was, I couldn't believe I was sitting here with the mother of improv. And so proudly I said, "Well, we're playing one of your games in our show." Oh. And she had a stuffed mushroom in her hand, and she threw it on the table, smashed it on the table, a swear word. Okay, she said, "God damn it." She said, "Everybody's using my games and nobody's paying me for it." And I guess what had happened, someone took her games and put it in a file system and copywrote that format. Yes. And she was pissed.
Yeah. Uh-oh. She kicked you out of the house?
No, we kind of left. He said, "Well, this has been nice. Thank you. It was really nice talking to you. Bye." That was interesting to me. And I have the story about just no. In Madison, after we started, I went to the Arc. Remember the Arc?
No.
The Arc was the only improv theater in town. They did long form improv.
Okay.
And I thought it'd be a great idea to get together and do a show together.
Yeah.
And get publicity.
And they said no.
Well, I took Jeff Kramer with me, and I think Pat Short, and we went to her house and found out where she lived, the director of the Arc. And said to her, "Hey, we're from ComedySportz," and she didn't invite us in. And said, "I've got a great idea that we do something together and get all this publicity for both of us." And she said, "No." I said, but it'd be really a good publicity thing because you're known, and we're just starting. No. I said, "But you see, if we," I just kept on going, and she said, "No, we don't do that sort of thing.
Oh,
we don't do that sort of thing," and they didn't. But the next week there was an article in the Wisconsin Journal, I think it was, that they interviewed the Arc.
Yeah.
And in this article, they asked them about improv and asked about Kentucky Fried Theater.
Yeah.
And they said in the article, "Well, we don't do that. Yeah. They have these gimmicks where they have a brown bag file where they brown bag people for saying something dirty. They have this thing called a groaner file. Then if they say a groaner, they have to apologize, and that's not improv." And that weekend we were sold out.
Because she talked you up in the article.
People read that and said, "Wow, this sounds really interesting.
It's a nice family show."
Yeah.
It sounds great. Well, when I think of you on stage, I think of marshmallows. You always combined games with the marshmallow game. What's your favorite game?
Not marshmallows.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. I marshmallows is a non-fail game.
Yeah.
It couldn't fail. And that's the game where you stick a marshmallow in your mouth every time you make the audience laugh.
Right.
And so the more marshmallows you have, the more they laugh. And I like non-fail games. Mm-hmm. Because they're the most entertaining.
Sure.
Because they don't fail.
Yeah.
Forward reverse is a non-fail game.
I love that game. It's my favorite.
I used to like to do the dubbing for dubbing, multiple dubbing.
Okay.
That's where to me, it's like forward reverse because you screw up all the time.
Right.
And the audience loves
sure.
screw ups when you don't mind screwing up.
Yeah.
And I think that became my favorite game, although I love forward reverse.
Mm-hmm.
Any game, Dr. Know-It-All should be a non-fail game. Games like that. I like scene work.
Yeah.
And I love improv, but you're doing a show.
Right. You got to remember the audience.
And you're doing a show for an audience.
Yeah.
You're not doing like theater sports. You're not doing it for yourself.
Right.
So why not play games that are non-fail?
Yeah, that the audience is going to love.
And they appreciate good improv.
Mm-hmm.
And they appreciate the fact that it's short.
Well, you've combined both, though. You take some of the shtick, the non-failing things, with improv.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's
That's
all
what you've
improv.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I mean...
But it requires acting. You need to be a good actor
Yeah.
in the show. You need to have other skills besides improv.
Mm-hmm.
So if you play a game like 185...
Yeah.
and you use something that's been used in other shows, you have to make it look like the first time.
Right. You
got to
act
That's an
like,
acting skill.
Sure. Definitely. Definitely. That's important. And like you said, it's for the audience. Sometimes going back, playing with some workshoppers or newer players, they really just desperately want to win at sideline debate. They just want to get the words. And we try to say, no.
Well, you try to get you want to win, but you don't care if you lose.
Yeah, but you don't care if you lose. Like, it's about
Right.
entertaining the audience.
Yeah, the audience doesn't like to see people who feel bad about losing.
Yeah, yeah. And you've never lost sight of that. I think that's great.
No.
It's all about getting that audience to enjoy themselves and laugh.
Yeah, it's an experience. That's what I always thought, that it was not just the show, but you come in, you're greeted by somebody that is fun. There's a ballet parker. And so you're entertained from the minute you get in there to the minute you leave.
Right.
And it's an experience. I remember going to Blue Man Group. Did you ever see that?
No, I've always wanted to go.
They're hysterical.
Yeah.
And the lobby, when I walked in the lobby, it is just pure entertainment. They're running around. There's things hanging everywhere. They had a tube that if you spoke into it, went to the dressing room and someone would speak back to you.
The dressing
It's
room.
just all this amazing things to look at. So it was a whole experience. It wasn't just a show.
Right. It's interactive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how has improv changed your life? It's been a part of your life longer than...
Since 1972, when I was just born.
Right.
Just
a couple
then.
years older than I am.
Being born was really improv. That was
that
improv
was just,
at its
yes,
best,
and is all
man.
you can say at that point.
I remember coming out. I remember coming out into the world. I remembering, wow.
I mean, it's a silly question to ask you. It's been a part of your life, your whole life. Improv.
It was a religion. When I first figured it out, when I did the first time I ever did an improv scene and didn't think.
Yeah.
That was a revelation. You don't have to think.
Right.
You don't have to work at this. You
Yeah.
don't have to memorize lines.
Memorize lines,
You just go
yeah.
up and you just react to anything someone says. It was amazing. Mm-hmm. And I knew from then that's really what I wanted to do. And it's a yes and thing, so you bring that over into your life. And it helps any situation.
For sure. I use it in the classroom all the time.
Yes, and that's good.
Yes. And I agree with you.
I see, Big Brother. Yes, and do what I say. And that was Big Brother's voice. Yes, do what I... Okay, sorry.
Do you have a favorite comedy sports memory?
I wonder what that sounds like.
I don't know whether it be
There's
buying
so
your
many
new place.
there's so many
or-
great, incredible memories that it's hard to put, take one, like, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite song? It's hard to do one favorite thing. I mean, some of the favorite things that happen through comedy sports, the marriages. I mean, your marriage to Dave and the kids. I mean, that's an amazing thing to me. That's
Yeah, without you, there would be a lot fewer marriages and children in the world. It's just a weird thing to say.
Well, and that the fact that people get to learn improv and learn yes and I think that it's a good thing in the world.
For sure.
That's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
That I feel like when you're on your deathbed, you know that. When you remember that?
I haven't been there yet.
Oh, yes, you have. You just don't remember it. Okay. That you're thinking, oh, I wish I would have. I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have. That's a horrible, horrible thought. And I know that if I die, and I still can think, I would I'm happy.
Oh, I love
I'm
that.
happy with my life.
I love that.
Yeah. That was a brilliant thing to say.
That would be fabulous.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
So what are you most proud of then, Dick?
You. I'm most proud of you.
Thanks. You're like another dad to me.
I am proud of you.
You are?
Yeah.
Go on.
I really am.
What? Why? Stop.
Because you're talented. You have this great family.
Oh, thanks.
These great kids.
They're adorable.
Yeah. And you brought something good into the world.
Oh, that's a nice way to put it. I've always been more of a half-empty kind of gal. Till I turned 40, which was a couple of years ago. And then I tried to be more half-full and more positive. And it's hard for someone who's been negative for a lot of her life. Although people never would know that about me because I'm like a spaz and crazy and I'll perform at ComedySportz and I'm a teacher and the kids think I'm goofy. But it's...
you don't really know anybody.
No, you don't. No. So what would people be surprised to learn about you?
I have the same anxiety.
Yeah?
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking, should I be doing something? Because I don't do ComedySportz anymore.
Right, you've
much.
retired from ComedySportz.
Yeah, so I have a lot of anxiety about that.
Well, you still come around.
I still come around and still have fun coming around. I helped ref a show, and that was fun.
I heard about that. When's the last time you performed?
That time?
That's before that.
Oh, man.
It's been a while.
Probably at a tournament, championship. Yeah. But reffing is performing, and I reffed a match at the ComedySportz tournament or championship, and they put me on at 3:00 because they knew that if I was at 7:30, they'd never get to the 10:30 show. And I did have quite a long show.
A long show.
Yeah, it was really long, and it was fun.
Mm-hmm. But you're fun to watch.
I am, aren't I?
You are. You're at ease. You make the crowd feel good and happy. Well, Dick.
Is that an hour? That's about an hour, isn't it?
I think we're over. You've been incredible. Without you, there'd be a whole lot less smiling going on in the world.
See, but I knew after this, I would go, I forgot that story.
Tell me another story. We can edit.
Story.
I asked you, what are you most proud of? And you said me. Is that why you wanted me to ask you that? You're adorable.
No. Did I ask you?
You said, hey, don't forget, what are you most proud of? I wrote it down.
Oh,
because you're going to write that ComedySportz history. Should we talk about that?
Oh.
What are you most proud of, Dick?
Let's see. I think. I'm ashamed of almost everything I've ever done.
You're what?
What?
You're what? Did you just say?
I am most proud of just being alive.
That's a good thing.
I think that I have fun a lot. And being with people I just chose the right thing to do. And I think okay, I got it. Okay. Greeting people when they come in.
At the show.
At the show. Greeting every single person when they come into the show.
Yes.
And making them smile. So you have someone coming in, you have a guy with his girlfriend that you just see they don't want to be there and they have to. And making that person smile and feel like, oh, this could be okay.
Yeah.
Is the most, that makes me proudest.
That's great.
Shtick. I love shtick.
You love it.
I love it.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Who said there was?
Not me.
My first improv teacher.
That bastard.
Yeah.
Well, Dick, thanks so much for coming in tonight.
It was a pleasure. I love talking about myself.
Well, you should. You should write a book.
Oh, yes, I am now writing a history of Milwaukee comedy sports. And I'm trying to get all the information from what you're doing is fits into the book perfectly because it can be part of the book.
Sure.
If you let it be.
Sure, I would like $1 million.
What? What? Wait, no.
What? No?
You get nothing.
A Cop's gift card?
You get a credit.
All right.
You're funny. You're a funny person.
Dick, thanks for coming in. You're the
Okay,
best.
we'll
Without
see
you, this whole, comedy sports thing wouldn't exist.
It was a pleasure talking to you.
All right, Dick Chudnow, ladies and gentlemen.
See you guys. Kyle, it's been nice.
Creator.
Thanks for being here, Dick.
Originator.
Bye-bye.
Original.
Bye, everybody. Podcaster listeners. Bye. I'm going now. There's chairs in front of the door. I can't get out. I gotta go. I have things to do. I have other podcasts.
The ComedySportz Podcast is produced and engineered by Kyle Hanneken. Our announcer is PJ Rockwell. Feel free to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Comments and inquiries can be sent to the ComedySportz Podcast at gmail.com. Created and hosted by me, Christine Rollo Capriolo. Thanks for listening.
The ComedySportz Podcast is an independent production made by CSz players. The views and opinions expressed by the podcast host and any guests are their own and do not represent the views and opinions of any CSz location or CSz Worldwide. Vocabulary used by the host and guests is not necessarily representative of the CSz brand.